Jess, it is so amazing to spend this snowy Wednesday with you. Thank you for being here.
It is. It's the first snowstorm here in the DC metro area. It's winter.
I'm mildly excited though. I have to admit.
I have my Christmas tree lit. Are you kidding? It's all in the season. Mhm.
Yes. So you are just someone with such an amazing background, and the work that you're doing is just incredible. I want to just tell everyone who this amazing human is. So I have with me Jessica Medina, who is a former lawyer turned accredited financial counselor. She is the founder of Jessica Medina Financial Coaching, LLC. And I love in your bio, you say, first came law, then came passion.
Mm-hmm.
You practiced law in the DC Metro for almost 14 years before deciding to press pause and pursue your true calling, which was financial coaching. You were a single mom of twins at the time. You had graduated from Columbia Law with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. And you were trying to keep your little family afloat while you juggled a new life as a law firm associate. And then you were there for 8 years. And one day you decided to leave. Mm-hmm. And now you are on this personal financial journey. You are on this mega financial journey where you're helping so many people, from attorneys to professionals. And you can tell us more about who exactly you help. But you just help people really to reclaim their financial well-being, and amongst so many other things. So thank you for taking a portion of your afternoon, especially in December, crazy December, to be with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie. You're going to write my marketing copy. That was great. That's a wonderful summary.
I'm reflecting back. This is already existing on this amazing website here. I got that.
Yeah, it is a unique journey. That's what many of my clients tell me, but I think that's what makes me a little different than other people in the financial industry. I practiced at a law firm here in DC for 8 years, and then I went to the Securities and Exchange Commission. So I had both, a transition from private law firm practice to the federal government, but also the transition from doing primarily litigation and investigative work into government investigative work. So a very different, kind of experience practicing law. And I think that variety of career paths is what convinced me it wasn't the place that I was working that was the problem. It was the job that I was doing that was the problem. I thought for a long time, I like law, I just don't like where I am. And if I switch up where I am, then I'll like it more. And that worked for maybe a year and a half. And then I had the realization, you know what? I think it's the law that I don't like. What am I going to do now? I trained my whole life to be a lawyer. This is all I knew how to do. But being at the Securities and Exchange Commission, it was obviously a very good introduction into the financial industry. And that kind of, stoked the fire of my interest in personal finance. And then I found financial counseling. And it really has been this crazy journey. If you had asked me 20 years ago, is this what I would be doing? I would have said, absolutely not. I'm going to be a judge. It's not where I'm planning on ending up. But it has been exciting. And, I think, a lot of people experience this. It's when you look back, it all makes sense. But gosh, when you're in the middle of it, it's really, really confusing and sometimes shocking, the kinds of things that you're experiencing.
Completely. To that point, I'm curious, when you were in that season of questioning everything, when you had that realization that, oh my gosh, it's actually the law that I'm doing that is not working anymore, that I spent so much money on education and God knows what else. When you had that realization, did you resist or deny that in the beginning? Or did it start off as kind of like a knock, knock, hey, look at this, until knock got louder? How did that unfold?
I am trained as a lawyer. I am naturally risk averse. Like before I went to law school, I was risk averse. So it just exacerbated my natural tendency to want to overplan and overthink, and be over prepared, right, for everything. So when I look back and I think to myself, gosh, when did I start thinking the law might not be for me? It was about 4 years into my practice. And it took me roughly 10 years to actually get out. That's how long I let it simmer. That's how long I denied that part of what was going on in my life. And I just said, no, I can make it work. I can make it work. There are things that I can do, that I can change, little tweaks here that I can make, and it's going to work. I'm going to make it work. But once I had changed where I was working, changed the kind of work that I was doing, was working with the nicest, smartest, most phenomenal group that you could find. There was nothing wrong with my situation. The only thing that I had left to change was my actual profession. That was the last thing, right, on the list of things that I could possibly change to really get to a place of happy and fulfilled. But it took me a really long time, and I denied it for many, many years because I just didn't even have the energy to think about it. When you're working in a large law firm, we call it big law, and it's just very demanding on your time, on your energy. You're serving clients, you're serving partners, you're managing up and down the line, and you do have a lot of work, and a lot of is expected of you because you get paid a lot of money. So, I think in that environment, it can be very difficult to do any introspection, do some self-awareness work, and you just don't feel like you have that luxury. So you just kind of keep plodding along until something makes you take a look at it. And I had a couple of those points in my life over my career, but like I said, it took me 14 years to finally get out. It wasn't a quick process. I don't do anything quickly still. I'm still pretty much an over planner. But, I think some people have that kind of lightning moment and they're just like, well, that's it. I'm done. I have to get out. And I had that moment. And then 10 years later, I was out. Yep. That's all it took.
Finally, it is real talk. And there are so many people right now in that position. I remember for me, it wasn't quite as long, but it was a solid 3 years where I just kept trying to quiet the voice. I kept trying to just tell myself that it was just a phase, that it would all work out. And then things just kept going wrong and creating more chaos. And and then I finally had that moment that pushed me over the edge. But what do you feel is the biggest thing that really led you to where you are today?
It's really my own personal finance journey that led me exactly into this space right now. I think I had been batting around in my head that maybe I don't like my career, maybe I'd like to do something else, but I just don't even know how to get there. I was a single mom. I had twin boys when I was in law school, and I had been raising them since I graduated. And that's a lot of pressure, right? I am the sole breadwinner. If I don't go to work, we don't eat. That's a fair amount of pressure to carry around with yourself all day. And so I didn't feel like I really had a choice to do anything other than what I had trained myself to do. On top of, supporting a family, like you said, I had graduated with a fair amount of student loan debt. I was not in the black in terms of net worth. I was constantly struggling with just trying to balance everything. And money was a big stressor for me. And it was one of the reasons why I stayed in the law as long as I did, because I knew it was secure. I knew that I could command a salary that would pay for our lifestyle, regardless of whether I ever found a partner to help or anything along those lines. I knew I could do it by myself. And that was really important to me, that I felt that security. But when I realized that I didn't really want to have to do law for the rest of my life, that meant that I was really going to need to dig in and figure out the money part, because that was like the really big hurdle stopping me from taking chances, from trying something new, from, ever considering going back to school for something else, or, just kind of like expanding what I wanted to do with my life. And I stumbled across the financial independence movement. I loved everything about it, especially the tenet that, once you get to a certain point, you can do whatever you want with your life. You don't have to work anymore. That was that was music to my ears. I was just like, if I can get there, that's what I'm doing. And it created so much focus and so much drive for me to get to that point where if I wanted to do law, I could, but I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to feel like I had to do it for the rest of my life. And that was a huge motivator for me. And that's where I started my education. It was really just reading books and doing research and figuring out my own money situation, figuring out a way that I could leave the law and still have financial security. And that just kind of morphed into, I've done this. I want to help other people who may be feeling those same kinds of issues, whether they're lawyers or not. I want to help people with money because money is not very well understood. We didn't talk about it in my house when I was young. I grew up in a house where you weren't supposed to ask how much your parents made. I had no idea how much, our lives cost or anything along those lines. It was considered rude to talk about money. And so I didn't really learn very much, which is why I graduated with insane student loan debt and just kind of bumbled around. But you couldn't tell because I made a lot of money. So my bumbling just looks like typical life for everyone else. And so when I realized that, I wanted to do something else, and this was basically my hobby. And then everything I learned about it, I was just, sometimes you stumble on these things that just continue to feed you, right? You learn about it, you learn about it a little bit more, and you want to learn more, and you want to learn more, and you want to learn more. This was one of the only things in my life where I felt like that. And it was such a great feeling. I knew I needed to do something with it. And that's really how I ended up, really here. It was wanting to fix my finances to a point where I could choose my career more intentionally. And I ended up intentionally choosing a career in personal finance.
It was really a natural evolution for you, is what it sounds like.
It really was. Once I got past trying to think through other weird things I could do with myself, right? We all have these moments where, I think I could do that. I think, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. I thought I was going to go into career counseling because I like mentoring people. I had always, kind of served as the the token minority associate, mentoring all of the minority associates who come through the ranks. I liked developing young attorneys. And so people would continue to come back to me for advice. And I thought to myself, well, I love law students. I love working with new lawyers. I could be a career counselor, right? I could go back to a law school. I could work in academia, which would be great because I love school. And I thought, this sounds really interesting. And I dug in a little bit more, and it wasn't that leaning in that I felt. It was maybe I don't like that. No, that doesn't really sound that interesting. It was just, it didn't keep pulling me in. And so I stopped. I looked at a couple job announcements, and I was like, when I read them, I wasn't excited to apply. I was almost afraid, oh no, what if I apply and I get it? And then that's how I have to spend my day. That's the wrong feeling, right? I could do that. I could do that already. I already have a job where if I really just want to suck it up and just spend my day doing it, I already have a job. So I was really looking for something that was really going to excite me. And the more I learned about financial counseling and how I can help people with their money outside of investing and, financial products and selling insurance and all of that kind of stuff, that when you're at the Securities and Exchange Commission, you get a little turned off to it. Those are people I was investigating. I wasn't interested in becoming one of those, investment advisors that doesn't treat their clients well and ends up getting sued. So, finding this area of the financial industry where I'm really just helping people figure out how to manage their money so that they can work with all those other financial professionals when they're ready. That was such a sweet spot and just something I wasn't even aware of. If I had known, I would have hired myself years ago. Right?
It's such a powerful lesson on when we are in environments. and we're in these high level positions, we're not always fully in tune to how we're feeling. We're suppressing a lot of it. We're numbing out, however we're doing that. And we're just go, go, go in our head much of the time. And what you mentioned is you figured out how to follow the feeling, follow the excitement, and not the expectation of what others were telling you to do or what you needed to do. And when you tuned in and listened to that and followed it, that's when you got the guidance.
Oh, Stephanie, if you had been there to shut off my frontal lobe, however many years ago, that thing is powerful. It's very powerful. It likes to hold center stage all the time. But there's another part of your brain that, your intuition is generally much better at making those really big decisions for you. If I do this with my clients all the time, right? I will run all the numbers for them. I will put together very beautiful spreadsheets and PowerPoints to explain exactly what's going on with their finances. But when it comes down to, are you ready to buy a house? Are you ready to make the leap into another career? What do you want your retirement to look like? That's not a number on a spreadsheet. It's a feeling. And you have to explore that feeling, because the numbers on the spreadsheet aren't going to mean anything. You are not pushing from that intuitive part of yourself. Otherwise, it's just going to be, we're going to be working uphill the whole time. And it's going to feel like a slog. It's going to be hard for me. It's going to be hard for you. That's why my first meeting with folks is always talking. We always have to have an extended discussion, because I can't do anything with your numbers. Your numbers don't mean anything to me. That I need to know who you are, because that's how we're actually going to get the real work done. We're going to really get to where you need to be.
So I'd love to dive deeper into this. So talk to us about your process. So what does this look like? Let's say you're getting started with a new client and you're meeting them for the first time. Are they kind of handing over their portfolio to you, their spreadsheets? Like what is your process? Because I think that for a lot of people, the financial aspect, the financial planning, all of that, it can feel so intimidating. And I think that if there were more people like you speaking to the energetics of it, it would be a much more enjoyable experience. And that's what it needs to be, right? Because ultimately, we are here to feel better. Everyone just wants to feel better. And generally speaking, money likes us to feel good in order to flow to us and from us. So talk to us a bit about what your process is when you have people in front of you.
Yeah. So I work with lawyers, but I also work with people who are not lawyers. Many of my clients are not practicing lawyers, because everybody has money issues, right? Everybody wants to be better with money. And like I said, what I like to do with my clients, everyone starts with a strategy session with me, because I need to get to know you. I need to get to know your financial picture. It also lets you get to know me. And if we're going to be working together, I want to make sure that you are really interested in the way that I operate and that you understand how I operate, so that we're both comfortable going into something that might be more long-term. I would love to be able to solve everyone's issues in one session. I can't always do that. So I want to make sure that, it's going to be a really good relationship between the two of us. But so for a strategy session, the first thing that we need to do is, I make sure that you're a good fit for it. We have a little call just to kind of figure out where your money issues are. I always want to make sure you're not looking for investment help, or, you're trying to buy insurance or something like that. Something I don't do. I have plenty of referrals for that, but that's not my area.
And what do you mean by money issues?
Oh, so anything related to all of those daily money habits that lead you to be able to build wealth, however you define it, right? So working on spending plans, working on long-term savings goals, working on paying off debt, working on making sure that when you spend your money, you're spending it on things that are really important to you. And it's not just kind of going toward things that maybe make you feel better in the moment, but don't actually serve to really enrich your life. those are the kinds of things that I work on with my clients over the long term, right? Because there's no spreadsheet that I can put together for you that's going to tell you what's going to, really make a difference in your life.
Like, do I really need another pair of jeans? Really? Really?
Oh goodness, the self-care, the self-soothing that we do, right, in the form of spending money in areas that maybe don't serve us very well is rampant, especially with my clients, because they have a fair amount of cash flow coming in. That really isn't normally the issue. Is that cash going to stuff that you really want it to. But so during the strategy session, you have to do a bunch of homework for me because I do need numbers, right? I am still a financial counselor. I'm not a life coach. I don't do career counseling. This really is going to be based on your numbers. So I need to know what your numbers are so that I can put strategies together for you. But after you do a fair amount of prep work for me, then we just sit down and we talk about it. And number one, I want to make sure that I'm reading all this stuff correctly, right? Because the way that I describe something in my spreadsheet might be a little bit different from person to person, and I don't want to misunderstand what's going on in your numbers. It also lets me ask you how you got to where you are. What do you like about where you are? What do you not like about where you are? What kinds of things have worked for you in the past? What kinds of things have you struggled with? Most importantly, how do you feel about money in your life? What kinds of experiences do you remember that maybe stand out for you that we should be cognizant of as we move forward? As an example, right, there's a lot of different strategies for how to pay down debt. And some of them are more efficient than others. Some of them are motivation based. Some of them really are, I want to pay the least amount of money possible toward my debt. And some of them are emotional. I had a client who had her car repossessed. The fact that her car loan was at a lower interest rate than some of her other debt didn't matter. She needed to get that car note paid off because she needed to feel really good that the repo man was never going to come and take her car ever again. And that was a priority. And if I had sent her through a formula, it would have told her to pay off this credit card first. But that wouldn't have given her the security that she needs to make all the rest of the money moves, right, that we're going to come up with for her. So it's that kind of stuff that we dig into in that first meeting just to make sure that whatever strategies I put together, I do put together strategies, I promise you, I do work with numbers. Whatever strategies I put together are going to make sense for you and for your personality and for the way that you operate and what motivates you so that you're going to be successful. That's my goal. So we have that discussion, and then I do all of my work. I crunch everything. I put together a PowerPoint because I'm a lawyer, and it's the only way I know how to speak to people. And you get the whole thing. You get my analysis. You get the overview of where you are, where you want to be, how you're going to get there, what things I think make sense for you. And if you're happy with that, and that's all you need, then we part ways. I check in with you later, but some people don't need ongoing coaching. They really just needed a plan. And because I deal primarily in career transitions, sometimes that's a pretty narrow question. People are just really concerned. Can I leave my job? Can I afford my life if I leave my job and I want to do something else? Sometimes that is a finite question that we can just answer. Sometimes in order to leave your job, we have work that we need to do. And in those cases, I have longer programs for folks who qualify for that and who that makes sense for. And of course, we talk about it together. But everybody gets to walk away with something in hand that they could implement right away.
And feeling much more empowered about their money situation.
Absolutely. They know what's going on now. They've looked, right? I often hear from my clients that the prep work is way more helpful than they ever imagined it could be. Because they had to finally sit down and look at everything. You can't answer my questions if you don't take a look. I mean, I have some people who just put question mark, question mark, question mark. But then we talk about why was it difficult for you to answer this? Why do we need to track down your passwords? What's going on, right? Do you have money hidden somewhere that we don't know about because we can't get access to it? Let's talk about that. But generally speaking, the prep work really is very helpful in getting people over that initial hurdle, right? Of just getting your head out of the sand, taking a look at stuff, seeing where you are. I force you into that process. And then I'm there to hold your hand, to make sure that you feel good when it's all over and you're ready to move forward.
Where do you think that our money issues stem from?
Ooh, So many different places. There usually is something that happened either, when you were growing up, the way money was handled in your house, the examples that you were given. I have a lot of clients that, when we're talking about, their childhood and childhood memories of money and things like that, there might be something that they've kind of carried around with them for a while. I think the other aspect is just a lack of knowledge, right? We don't do a very good job in this country of educating children or adults about personal finance. We just assume that if you have a job, you should be able to handle everything. And it's all kind of common sense. But it's not, because every situation is different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone's family situation is different. So what works for one person very well may not work for someone else. And because my clients are primarily attorneys, they have a very different money history than other young professionals. They were in school longer, they got a late start with their career. They may be peaking in terms of their earning potential early, right? It seems like a great problem to have, but most people assume that they will consistently get raises over the course of their career. If you start in big law, you might be making more money than you'll ever make ever again if you don't have a partner. So it's downhill from there. And that's a very different pathway, right? That's a very different financial reality than people who are used to coming in at the ground floor and constantly increasing how much they're making so that they can constantly be building on all of these things that they've set up. It's very different when you're kind of starting pretty high and you need to optimize right away. Otherwise, that's a wasted opportunity. You might not get it back.
There is so much more conversation these days around money and, the whole money mindset movement and the personal development and the access that we have to working on those areas are really, really prevalent now. And so I'm curious, with that in mind, do you think that more people are going to be better off or more financially healthy 5 years, 10 years from now because of this growing popularity around money and wealth consciousness and all of those things? Or do you think that people will be less likely to look at it in the long term?
I think that the more people can start paying attention to the parts of the financial industry that don't get a lot of attention, the better off we are, right? Money mindset is pretty new. Financial coaching is pretty new. People have known about investing for years and years. People have known about accountants for years and years. People have known about insurance brokers and stockbrokers for years and years and years. They never thought that they ever needed anyone like that. And they didn't know what to do before they needed someone like that. And I think that the space that is growing right now is finally recognizing that it's building the good money habits that get you to the point where you have wealth that needs managing. But if you don't build that foundation, you're never going to get there. And that's why there's been such a huge difference between what finances are for the very well off or the people who got that education early and people who may just be struggling day to day, right? I know lawyers who make hundreds of thousands of dollars who live paycheck to paycheck, right? It's not just for struggling poor. A lot of people are struggling because they don't have good habits in place that will help them build themselves toward wealth. And only when you get to, that level of wealth do you maybe get access to some of those financial services that, otherwise you don't get access to. So I think this is wonderful. I think any amount of education that we can bring in the personal finance space is great, with the caveat that it's not the same thing for everyone. I have a really big problem with cookie cutter solutions.
Oh, sister.
And so, I think the more personalization that comes into the finance industry, especially at these earlier stages, sometimes, and I get this a lot because I have many clients who have exorbitant student loan debt. And they hear over and over again, well, nobody should have any debt. and debt is evil and you have to get rid of it as quickly as possible. In fact, you can't focus on anything else in your finances until the debt is gone. That's a very dangerous proposition for somebody who is struggling to pay off $250,000 in student loans. We should not be telling them to stop every other financial priority, because that's 15 years gone, right? That's not good advice for someone in that kind of situation. But because so much of the advice is given as though it applies to everyone, when it doesn't apply to you, you kind of feel duped. Feel like, well, nobody's talking to me. And so apparently there's no place for me to go. And so, I think money mindset has to be personalized, right? Because we all have a different money story we bring to the table. So whoever you're working with in that space, I'm hoping, right, is digging in on your personal story. The same thing with financial counseling. I ask you for your numbers because I can't do anything. I'm not going to pretend like you have somebody else's numbers or some, typical set of numbers applies to you. It never does. There's always something creative that we can do that is particular to your situation. But I need to know it so that I can put it together for you. And that does take extra work, right? It's not a formula in a book. So I think.
Yes, you nailed it. And I think that this is where, books have their purpose, programs and certain courses have their purpose. And I think with certain things, you just need that level of personalization, which comes from having a private support from someone like you, who can really roll up your sleeves and be right there with the client.
Yeah.
You mentioned the importance of habits as kind of the foundation to building wealth and getting financially healthy. And I love that, because we so often talk about habits when it comes to getting fit or losing weight, right? But why not about our money? And so I'm curious, and I want to kind of wrap up with this final fun question. What would be the one habit that you feel, if people were to do this more consistently, that it could be a game changer, generally speaking?
That's so one habit. So this is more of kind of a process issue, right? And one thing that I think people have a lot of trouble with is just seeing what happens with their money. There's a lack of transparency and a lack of clarity that goes on when you have one account that all of your bills get paid out of. You also pay for all of your random variable things, right? Your gas, your food, your entertainment, random, pharmacy trips, random Instacart deliveries. And it's very difficult to tell in your account when you have extra money that you could throw at a real financial goal, or when you've actually overspent. It's very difficult because everything's on a different schedule. It's timed differently, right? It's very hard to see what's going on. So you just throw up your hands and you say, well, as long as I don't go below zero, as long as I don't overdraw, I guess it's fine, but I'm going to spend all of this money. What I teach my clients to do is to separate out their money into different categories so they can see exactly what's going on. And the biggest benefit to that is when there is extra money, and there inevitably is, right? We have weird windfalls all year long. You get an extra paycheck, right? You get a tax refund, something happens. You have a little extra money in there, you can see it. It's extra. You can put it towards something that you've been, working toward over the long term. And I feel like that's just so powerful. The transparency and the clarity into what's going on with your money, that's always the first step, right? We need awareness before we can even decide what is the next move. So I feel separating your money is my biggest tip.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing from that is the awareness, the looking, like being willing to look at it, look at the accounts, and then structuring and organizing from there.
Yes.
I
It's
love
so much easier, right? Because when the structure will tell you what to do, you don't have to think about it. How exhausting to have to constantly be making decisions about money when you could just know very quickly. I think that's a big issue, at least for my clients, is getting that transparency and that clarity so that they can easily make decisions. My clients like to make decisions. They just get paralyzed because they can't really see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna I take that and apply it to health as well,
Mhm.
and our relationships, all the big categories, right? Knowing is everything. If you're feeling off, go and have it checked out. Create the awareness around what's really happening. So I think that's such a gorgeous place to end, and hopefully inspiring everyone to lean into more knowing
Yes.
in their 2021.
Yes. Don't be
Our
afraid. Once you know, you can figure it out.
Yes, and they can call you for some help if they choose. So we're going to drop your website here in the chat. And is the best way to reach you via email or?
Well, you can go on my website to schedule a consult, read a little bit more about me, but the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out.
All
That's where
right,
you can
everyone, head over there. Beautiful. Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom with us. You're doing such powerful work in the world. So thank you and happy holidays to you.
Same to you, Stephanie. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. See you.